The second,
dropped this
let's stay
one.
exactly the way it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm mixing Kevin up.
Madam Chair, if you would like, I'd be happy to read it as the proposed amendment
Please.
sounds now.
That would be great.
So subsection B would read, LCCC will utilize competitive hiring approaches to identify and retain the best employee for each position. This process may utilize either internal and/or external searches.
Okay, got it, all right, thank you, thank you.
Will,
Sorry.
excuse me, will that change the vote if we just go ahead and make that amendment at this time to our attorneys?
Madam Chair, can you ask the question again?
If we make this change, will it change anything? Can we just make this as an amendment?
You would be
this
voting on the
evening
amendment.
And vote on it, and it will not change anything else except the wording here,
Correct, you'd be voting just on that amendment.
Okay. Trustee Mosier, did you have a question? Thank you.
Yes, I do. When Trustee Erickson was speaking, at one point he used the phraseology, and I believe that is in there, best employee. Is that a part that he's changing or not?
Yes, Madam Chair, the amendment, Trustee Mosier, would be in paragraph B, best candidate, the first sentence. In the first sentence,
Okay, so you're removing the word employee, correct?
no. No,
Let's have Trustee Erickson read it to you as he wishes it stated.
Okay, and our attorney had it correct. LCCC will utilize competitive hiring approaches to identify and retain the best employee for each position. That's the amendment.
Can you hear that, Ed?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just make a point for clarity here that how can this be the best employee when we don't have it? Employee, if we're talking hiring, that person is not an employee yet, I know. Best employee that we then have employed, but at that point, they're a prospect, they're not an employee.
Madam Chair, Trustee Mosier, I had the same concern about the words identify and retain in there, but I decided that maybe I wouldn't fiddle with that one and just do with the imperative of the will. Now, if you wish to further amend the rest of that sentence to clarify the point that you're making, that would be a friendly amendment, in my opinion.
Madam Chair, Trustee Erickson and Trustee Mosier, just to provide an alternative perspective, while I appreciate Trustee Mosier's comments about the language, the word retain really is the language that shifts this from being a candidate to an employee that's engaged through the retention. So certainly when we're using the words identify, we're identifying candidates, but once we retain them, and to retain them, they become employees. And so I believe the word retain identifies that. If you wanted to put identify the best candidates and retain the best employee for each position, you know, that may be appropriate, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Did you hear that, Trustee Mosier?
Yes, I think it would provide clarification, which is what we're seeking, so I would like to see either us use the word prospect at that point and then proceed as Dr. Schaefer suggested.
Trustee Erickson, is that acceptable?
Yes.
It's a friendly amendment.
Let's reread that so that we're sure that we all agree on it.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to do that if you would
Please.
like. LCCC will utilize competitive hiring approaches to identify the best candidate and retain the best employee for each position.
Thank you very much. If there is no further discussion, let's vote on that amendment, please. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Does anyone disagree? Ed, were you an aye?
I abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention. So let's move on.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to clarify, I abstain because it would be incongruent with my next point I want to make here.
Okay. Go ahead with your next point, please.
I would like to move that we amend the amended motion, or the motion as now amended, because it did pass, correct?
Yes, it did.
I would like to amend the motion on 6.1 that it include the description of the employee classes.
And how would you like that to read? Is that how you want it to read?
If would simply bring forward and add to it that from, I think it's, I don't have that paperwork right in front of me at the moment, but it would bring forward those four descriptions of the employee classes. Just the description.
Please give us a moment to find that.
I think it's on page 3 of 6.1.
6.1P. 6.1P.
Section B where it says employee categories. I think what he's talking about is moving the whole section B in the policy.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's done with the whole section.
Madam Chair, may I ask for a clarification from Trustee Mosier? Trustee Mosier, are you asking where your amendment to the amendment would have best employee for each positions, administrator, professional, classified staff, and faculty? Those words, are those the words that you are looking for? Or are you looking for the total description of every one of those classifications?
Four are listed as A, B, C, and D under procedures 6.11, something like that. My office is kind of questionable at this point. I'm working out of a car, so.
It's these here.
Again, Madam Chair, I'm still not clear as to whether you're asking for just the titles or the complete description.
Complete description, Don.
Thank you.
Trustee Erickson.
Thank you. Well, I'll second that for discussion then.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Madam,
Chair.
yes, Trustee Mosier.
The reason I'm recommending that we are trying to amend it to include these is I think it provides for continuity and it allows the board then to control any changes that may take place. The president would likely recommend how we change classifications, and I think that would bring that under the control of the board, which is responsible for overseeing the employee and the employee groups and what those groups do at the college.
Trustee Little.
Madam Chair, I respectfully disagree with Trustee Mosier. I think that job classifications do not belong under board policy. We have one employee, and that is Dr. Joe Schaefer. And it is his employment that we should control and have a say over, not the positions and the classifications of everyone who works at this college. That is the college's business to manage the college in the way that best works for the management style that we allow Joe to practice. If we don't like the way that the employee structure or the classifications of employees are working here at LCCC, then it's our responsibility to tell the president that we are not happy with the way he is structuring the employee groups here, and for what reason. We have to give him a reason. Instead of us having control over it, we need to advise our president if we see something that he is doing that we don't think is working for the college. He can respond to that. We can we can tell him what we want to see, and if he doesn't like it, then we have a decision to make. So I don't think those classifications belong in policy. What belongs in policy is that we feel those classifications should be fair and realistic or something like that, and then let Joe handle it from there. And he answers to us.
Thank you. Trustee Kilty? Sure. Go ahead, Ed.
With Brenda, Trustee Will, I disagree with you because I think our job is to provide the broad framework in which Joe functions, or any president functions, and not to allow them, if you would, an opportunity to be going down the wrong path. I think we give them a football field to play on. We set the parameters in which they're going to play, and we give them the tools that allows them to be creative and achieve the objectives for the institution under their direction. I think this doesn't inhibit their powers in such a way that it would in any way demean the job, but rather protects the college in terms of having the direction the presidents need in terms of the kind of employees and what those functions are for those employees. And if that needs to be changed, then we as a board provide the oversight to hear and understand why those changes should be made rather than reacting to situations that might occur down the road that we are seeing forward and functioning in a forward fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Kilty?
More perspective to what Brenda said there. If you go, maybe Ed can fill in what he means by continuity here, but that sounds to me like continuation from the past. And Bruce Curl, who worked here for a long time, and I think most people in this room regard highly as won't be a from the past, and I don't think it's detail that I don't think belongs in policy, and I'd love to have Bruce explain to me why he kept it out of policy for as long as he did, and Bruce wrote those. And so the last two HR professionals we've had here sought not to do this, and I'm going to agree with them.
Thank you. I would like to ask Dr. Schaefer his perspective, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Kilty just referenced what I was going to reference, and that's just the, contrary to the claims you've heard about the classification and employment relationships being in policy and never delegated to the president. Indeed, these have been in procedure for certainly while you were through policy governance, but many years even prior to that. There was also a claim that you heard about your statutory requirement to do this, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I wrote down that what you heard from Mr. Hacker was that Wyoming Statute 21-18-303A9 says that sets forth the board's responsibilities to determine employee status, employment relationship, and other employees. The reality that statute states that the Community College District Board may and not shall do the following, and in addition, you could argue that statute is not intended to deal with employment relationships, but rather contracted service relationships between the district and entities identified within that section. In fact, the one place in statute that it does say the board shall do anything regarding employee is in statute 21-18-204A6, where it states that the board shall appoint a chief administrative officer of the college. I again would concur with what Dr. Kilty mentioned, and point to the past that what is in question here is not necessarily what has been or what should be in policy or procedure, the divergence there. I believe it's the intent that if this is shifted into policy, then you will be swayed by the arguments of individuals to make a change in regards to the employment classification system.
Madam Chair? I'd
Yes.
like to weigh in on this. I don't personally have any problem with the identifying of the four categories as the positions, just the categories: administrator, professional, classified, and faculty. However, going beyond that and then identifying specifics appears to be board meddling. I think we're getting way too far into each of those areas, which I think should be the prerogative of our CEO. So I also, as it is currently amended with the full description of how it would be defined as an administrator or a professional or a classified or a, not vote for that either.
If there is no more discussion, I know we have an amendment brought forth by trustee Mosier, and we had a second, and so I would like to have a vote on that amendment. And all those in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that amendment, please say nay. Nay. And that amendment does not pass. We have another, we have already approved, we had a first and a second to pass these policies this evening. Is there any more discussion? As amended, thank you. Trustee Erickson. Would anyone else like to comment here on the board, please? If not, then we will pass all 7 of the,
Madam Chair,
yes,
Madam Chair,
yes?
do we have any time for discussion on the motion as amended?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm a little bit puzzled when we are looking at this policy, and we're really trying to find, or to me, this policy. What we're trying to do. And the reason I don't feel it's going to achieve that is this policy really doesn't provide the kind of direction that I think we, the board, would like to provide. Now, that's my opinion, and that's what I'm expressing, and I know I'm likely on the narrow side here, but I also, you know, when I look at this, I look back at Trustee Gilfie's comment, and I really wonder, when we're talking about practicing, and we're making efforts here, research, if you're talking engineering, I think that's just fine, but, you know, we've got some things that have been working, I think, very well. Yes, we've got some dollars fiduciarily that have been expended, but as I brought up and pointed out, administrative and professional staff have consumed the vast majority of those dollars. And those dollars haven't been expended in recent time relative to, since we changed procedures and policies here just a few short years ago. I also disagree with the time frame that Trustee Kelpie was talking about, because even though we've talked about some of these things, we have not had any formal direction as to, okay, here's the policies, this is what we're going to do through changing these policies relative to employment here. And so, again, I come back and say, you know, yeah, we can come back and change these things and make it better, but by changing things, what have we done relatively as a whole to the environment of which these people function and we want the college to work well in? So I've got some concerns about it. I'm going to vote no because of that, because I think we're doing some things that are not really addressing the problem that we are confronting. And I appreciate your consideration of that.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Trustee Mosier.
Kevin Pratt wants to speak too.
Trustee Little?
I want to say publicly that I am going to vote for these policies, and I want to tell the audience why I'm doing so. I do have concern for the employees here. You know, many of you I know outside of this room, and there have been many employees here that I know outside of this room, and I have deep respect for the folks who work here, because of course this college can't function and we wouldn't have any students if it weren't for you, and you serve the students here very, very well. I would feel very differently about all of these policies if we were changing the status of any person who is here now. I would have a very different view. But I believe that folks who come to work here, who are going to be the new at-will status folks, will understand that they will be at will. If they choose not to work here because of that, then I trust we will get that in some kind of a report, as Trustee Erickson asked for. And then we can deal with those problems at that time. Since I've been on the board, which has been for almost 8 years now, we have struggled with different presidents to clean up our HR policies. They've been a problem for a long time. 4100 was awful. Kevin's right about that. And we had a lot of problems under 4100. And we have asked for policies to be changed in HR. We now have something new and different, and so of course it's scary because it's new and it's different. And it affects a class of people that we feel protective about and care about, because they do a lot of our daily work, and I understand that too. But I think it's going to be all right. I really think it's going to be all right. And if it's not, we can change it later. But I think sometimes you have to roll the dice and take a risk and make a change that is scary for some. I don't like to make decisions based on fear. I like to make decisions based on possibility. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for these policies, and it's not because I don't care, because I think it's all about money. I don't think that either. But because I think we've been asking for a change in HR policies. I trust our president, I trust our legal counsel. I want to give this a shot. I think it's going to be okay. And if it's a disaster, then I will admit that my vote was wrong, and we can go back and change things. But I really think that we could be seeing some positive result. And so I plan to vote for them. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Little. Trustee Kilty.
You know, Ed, he sort of argued with me, suggesting that quote, statistician Frederick Mosteller, who has been around the national policy scene in I don't know how many ways, international policy all over the place. And Frederick Mosteller says experiments in the social sciences and policy and everywhere else, because without experimentation you will never improve the operation of organizations or institutions, period. And so I'm entirely in favor of this. Now, with regard to Ed's amendment wanting to pull these classifications, and I know we've already put this to bed, but let me just make one more remark about that. Pulling these employee classifications into policy. I don't see that would have done anything. I don't think that the board would be any more unaware of the president fiddling with the rights of various classifications and so forth with those classifications in policy than we would be if they were over in procedure. It seems to me that you can't change a lot of procedures without the board noticing things are going on. And a board that is on the ball is going to notice this and then going to ask, why? What is the evidence for what you're doing? And boards should be evidence-based. This is experimentation. And I'm 100% so add, and this is just for whatever use it is. I spent 23 years as an engineering consultant and contractor in industry all over the place, and there's no more at-will employee than that.